There's a long and messy story between Toby Fox Games and game theory, from MatPat blessing the Pope with Undertale to the infamous Nest theory, and let's not forget about the dozens of drama every new video caused. After that, many never expected the channel to go back to games like Deltarune, and yet here we have what may be the worst theory MatPat, or at least Tom, his successor, has created. We're gonna dive straight in, iceberg style, going from little silly mistakes that aren't that big of a deal to flat out ignoring major plot points just for the convenience of their theory. Now, before starting, please don't hate on game theory or any of their members. This video is targeted at this one theory in particular, and I have huge respect for the rest of their work. With that out, let's jump in. First, we're gonna tackle the identity of the knight. It's been a pretty big discourse in the Deltarune community.
And you know what? Let's talk about the Roaring Knight for a minute. Who is it?
YouTuber Shay made a great video recapping everything so far, and I absolutely recommend you give it a look, after this one of course. But here's the big picture. Upon playing chapter 4 for the first time, most people would be drawn to say Carol is the knight. But after replaying the game and digging further, it becomes rather obvious Des is a better candidate. Game theory doesn't add much more to the debate.
Des is the Roaring Knight.
They do talk about the knight being left-handed, and I want to get back on this bit because it was everywhere on the internet, but it's not evidence enough, far from it.
And weirdly, that she's left-handed, based on her mouse being on the left side of her computer. And wouldn't you know it, the knight also wields their sword in their left hand.
Using a character-handedness isn't new in Toby Fox's work. For example, it has been previously confirmed that Sans was left-handed. However, in Deltarune, most character designs are rather inconsistent. In the Holiday House, for example, the guitar randomly teleports between hands when Carol is holding it. The knight received the same treatment, the most obvious moment being when it turned around to face Undyne. Now, maybe the Holidays being ambidextrous is an important plot point, but most likely Toby never meant this to be a key element to the knight's identity. And let's be honest, if we're gonna bet on who the knight is, the safest money is always Papyrus. I also want to briefly address the code of the bunker.
When Chris actually looks at this guitar in chapter 4, what do they find? The code to the bunker.
What a lot of people don't seem to pick up, and game theory too, is that you need 3 codes, one for each symbol. The bind tree is 1225, we know this from chapter 4, but the other 2, the officer badge and the Deltarune, remain unknown. We also have no idea what the knight's objective is regarding the bunker. They probably already had access to it, so they knew the 3 codes, but still tried to abduct the characters who potentially had infos. Undyne for the officer badge, and I assume Toriel for Deltarune. So if they already have access to it, why are they trying to take people as hostages? Is it targeting characters that exist in both Deltarune and Undertale? Oops, we're getting off track, sorry. I won't go deeper in this subject because that could be a topic of a whole video on its own. But I am quite disappointed that game theory didn't even try to talk about it. Okay, let's focus on Susie a bit. In the storyline given by game theory, she gets what is portrayed as the ultimate character development.
The class bully turned into a selfless warrior, willing to do whatever it takes to save the world.
But she is already this hero. Game theory doesn't quite realize how much of this character development is already done. In chapter 1, she's independent enough to attack on her own and only stops when she understands that it won't lead her anywhere. This kind of independence will come back in the Game Boy section of chapter 3, where she decides to move on her own. I will agree, Susie's character development is pretty abrupt. She doesn't show many emotions until she makes a friend. She's even ready to sacrifice herself to save him. Oh, look at that. Sacrifice herself. She can already do that, huh? Okay, but why would Susie end up in a point where she has to sacrifice herself? Well, this is linked to game theory's interpretation of the final prophecy. They try to use the rhyming scheme of the prophecy.
The prophecy follows a classic AABBC rhyming scheme, and lines 1, 3, and 5 use 10 syllables, while lines 2 and 4 use 8.
Which is a huge overshot in my opinion. It could say anything. Susie dies, Noelle dies, anyone dies, frankly. I don't think it matters that much. If we listen to Gerson, regardless of who the prophecy targets, they can be saved. But we'll come back to Gerson later. Let's roll the video a bit more.
There is a secret ice palace you can travel to. On the door is the Deltarune symbol, but it's slightly different to what you might remember. It's pretty hard to see because, well, it's 8-bit, but the symbol actually has 4 triangles on it instead of the usual 3.
Oh yeah, no, that's just a keyhole.
Before now, we believed the 3 triangles represented Chris, Susie, and Rolsei, the 3 heroes. But now we're being shown 4 people are a part of it.
But no, that's not a 4th hero, that's just a keyhole.
So Susie knows how to open a dark fountain. She isn't the real hero spoken of in the prophecy.
What the heck? Where are you getting that from? Alright, we've entered the wrong hero theory. It's been pretty popular over the internet after the game was released. Once again, game theory doesn't add much to the debates. Nothing they say is brand new. The basics of the theory is that the second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart, is not Susie, but Noelle. Wait, we've just been told there's 4 heroes because they're 4th triangle, and right after that they're saying there's 3 heroes, but not the one we're thinking about. So what's up with that? And okay, whatever, let's assume I'm wrong and this is in fact a 4th triangle, not just a keyhole. I mean, it doesn't prove anything. We just know that a 4th character will play a big role in the prophecy, but that's nothing really new. The glass tapestries already depict 4 separate characters. It's not this random door that's gonna confirm that. Anyway, let's get back to the whole Susie is not a hero thing. There are multiple ways to disprove this. The foundation of this theory is that the glass tapestry of the prophecy doesn't look like Susie. Well, first, we don't know that. And second, do the prophecy visuals need to be exactly similar down to the last detail? When Susie reaches the prophecy, she immediately recognizes herself before even reading what is written. Next, game theory points out that
Susie doesn't ever really carry a sword. She's known for her axe.
And on the flip side,
when you combine her ring of thorns that you get from her special root with a pure crystal, you get an item called the Twisted Sword. Guys, it's Noelle.
We'll speak more about Snowgrave towards the end of the video, but for now, I will say Noelle's ability to equip the sword was removed when chapter 3 and 4 dropped. But okay, I can see you're not convinced. Here's a bit more. The final panel, at last was the girl, is pointed either to Susie or Noelle, depending on who's a hero and who's not. So if we figure out who's the girl, by process of elimination, we know who's the hero. The character of the girl is also mentioned by this guy.
In chapter 4, you also encounter these priestly figures of the Deltarune, each of them telling you a tale connected to the prophecy, and one of them says, "Who will call the girl who snows?"
So we have 2 mentions of a girl, with one being obviously Noelle. In that case, why would the second one not be? That would be quite the inconsistency. We should also tackle the visuals of the panel. In the game file, this tapestry is saved as Rootbuster, which game theory does point out.
And if you look into the game files, the image used behind the final girl is labeled Rootbuster. Rootbuster is a move unique to Susie, so though she may not be named as one of the 3 heroes, she clearly has something important to do with the prophecy.
Now, I don't know about you, but this doesn't really look like Rootbuster. Okay, there is the carpet in Susie's room that looks much more like it, which game theory doesn't even point out, by the way. But the room was made by Ralsei in between chapter 1 and 2, before he even met Noelle. He knows the full length of the prophecies, so why would he drop such a huge hint to the fact that Susie is not a hero? Remember, it's the same guy that tried to hide the final prophecy from Susie.
Ralsei is also acting sketchy throughout both of these new chapters. Not only are they hesitant whenever Susie brings up the prophecy, but Ralsei also makes a point to always talk to Chris about how nice Susie is. He even does it directly after Susie smashes the glass.
Yet wouldn't have any issues with this big plot twist? I feel like this looks closer to the act symbol from Undertale, which doesn't really help because both Susie and Noelle can act. This, combined with the fact that prophecy tapestries don't have to look exactly similar, I think the design shouldn't be relevant when trying to figure out who's who. Oh, and just for fun, let's mention Lord of the Hammer. It adds nothing to the debates, it's more of a side quest from the iceberg, but I feel like it'll become more important the longer the story gets. Lord of the Hammer is a series of books written by Gerson that were inspired by the prophecy, which is why it's very similar to Deltarune's storyline. Apparently, it also was adapted into a video game, Dragon Blazers, which is why many characters are fan. Noelle, Birdley, and Susie. After fighting the Hammer of Justice, she asks Gerson what character fits her the best, to which he replies, the dragon. According to Gerson himself, during that same fight by the way, Chapter 1, The March of the Dark King, the heroes defeat the king and stop the dragon. Chapter 1 of Deltarune, the party defeats King, and Susie's personality completely changes. But can we treat this as evidence enough? If anything, the dragon is separate from the heroes, so that would prove Susie not being one. But Noelle is nowhere to be seen when fighting King. She first enters the Dark World in chapter 2, so maybe neither Susie and Noelle are heroes. Or maybe this segment doesn't prove anything, it's just for fun. My main issue is that this was fully ignored by game theory, when we know this is gonna be important. Hey, we even got some chapter 5 foreshadowing this way. You may wonder why game theory decided to skip all of this. Well, I'm gonna pass pad the runtime of the video a bit more. Remember, this is an iceberg style video. Either way, game theory talks about the second sanctuary and how it looks off.
Plus, when Susie attempts to open the dark fountain later in the chapter, all the colors were wrong. Things aren't exactly the same as the real dark world, because though Susie knows how to open a dark fountain, she isn't the real hero spoken of in the prophecy.
This is just dumb, I'm sorry. Ralsei already said that every dark world is different. The main theory right now is that dark worlds opened by the same person will look similar. The Knight has opened most fountains so far, chapter 1 and 2, the first and third sanctuary. When Chris opened their fountain, we got to see their dark world in chapter 3, with widely different gameplay mechanics. And here, we just see Susie's dark world with the altered color scheme. Next on game theory's list,
in another part of the prophecy, it says, love finds its way to the girl. The image here is the same as the second hero, but it has a heart like ours inside it.
It has different interpretation depending on who is the hero and who is the girl. If we put Susie as the hero, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, everyone has a crush on her. Noelle, Birdley, Chris for some reason. Oh god, I'm about to get attacked by all the Cruzy fans in the comments. However, if Noelle is the second hero, like in the game theory video, this could imply something much darker. They do get the beginning of it, but fail to go any deeper. They correctly highlight that love could be the Undertale anagram for level of violence.
In Undertale, we were taught about the love stat. When we kill enemies, our love increases, but the stat actually stands for level of violence. During the Snowgrave route, Noelle was pushed to become more violent, and the level of violence found its way to her.
What game theory did not get is literally everything else. For example, the fact that LV is already used in other places in Deltarune. At the beginning of every chapter, the party members have leveled up with more health and overall better stats. Okay, so this hints LV is not level of violence. But we also have a reference to LV in Snowgrave. When equipping the Thorn Ring, Noelle's HP is drained to 55, LV in Roman numerals. So is LV the Undertale definition, or does Deltarune have a different system? I'll come back to it in a minute. Let's focus on the heart itself. If Noelle is a hero, the heart would represent a new soul that is growing. It's confirmed by the chapter 4 cutscene in Noelle's house and at the end of the game. A new soul for a new vessel. But hold on there, this only works in the Snowgrave route. What about the regular route? Well, in the eyes of game theory, it doesn't matter.
All of this is pointing to Noelle, and more specifically, the Snowgrave route being part of the prophecy. The Snowgrave route is the canon series of events. Even though it felt like it was a decision we were able to make, Toby Fox is once again showing us that it was destined to be.
Okay, so this is nothing new. Theories like this have existed since the release of chapter 2, but I always found them pretty lame. It feels strange to say genocide is the correct path to go, and this completely ignores Toby's entire design philosophy that's been existing since Undertale. Players are supposed to be punished for being violent. Why on earth would Deltarune be different? I think game theory chose to put Snowgrave as canon only to confirm their interpretation of the prophecy.
To save the world, there is only one way. The girl's death breaks the angel's sway. Only then will the worlds be saved.
As for me, I think the prophecy is ambiguous on purpose. Both options are plausible and likely, so why couldn't they both be right? It'd be really cool to see the prophecy have a different meaning depending on the route you're in. In the regular route, Susie is the hero, Noelle is the girl, and love represents the growing relationship between the two of them. And everything we've discussed earlier applies. But in Snowgrave, Noelle is the hero, Susie is the girl, and love takes the darker meaning that it had in Undertale. Everything game theory highlighted applies, and also everything they missed. In both universes, we, as the player, are still the villain, but how evil we are depends on our actions, kinda like Sansa's judgment in Undertale. Either way, we're slowly but surely reaching the bottom of the iceberg. Before we dive in, I'm gonna gently let this graph slide through the screen. Any support is appreciated, and I'd love to hear your takes on both Game Theory's video and mine in the comments. Anyway, during the whole video, Game Theory stands by
the whole theme of this game is that your choices don't matter.
And like, this is just baffling. You're playing a Toby Fox game. You really expect this to be true? And it does happen, as early as chapter 1. Getting all recruits, although they weren't called recruits back then, leads to an ending where everyone in the kingdom, led by Lancer, overthrows King. If you haven't recruited everyone, Ralsei just pacifies king. Snowgrave is an even bigger hint that our choices do matter and that the prophecy can be broken or changed.
Their destinies are set. They cannot be changed. And even if you try to force a change, like you can in Chapter 2, where you do a genocide-like run, making your friendly neighbor Noel freeze enemies to death, it still doesn't change the outcome.
What? Huh? What the fuck do you mean? Of course it changes the outcome, what? We don't fight Queen at all, Burley is half dead, and Noel is completely traumatized. Sure, the ending is similar, Chris opens a fountain in the living room, but that's the ending of the chapter. We don't know how the game will end yet. According to Toby, there's only one ending, but there's something more important than reaching the end. And you could bet anything Snowgrave will be different. Again, not the canon one, but we've already talked about it. What is insane to me is that in their previous Deltarune video, MatPat does mention how Snowgrave will lead to a different ending.
The Snowgrave ending stands out not just because of how dark and uncomfortable it is to achieve, but also because it's the first time a player gets to do the very thing they've wanted to do since Undertale: make a choice.
I guess they just forgore. Side note, if you want to be really picky, we technically get the proof that our choices will matter at the very beginning of the game. The vessel we create and that is supposedly discarded is actually saved in the game files, so they may come back at one point. Alright, as a closeout for this video, let's talk about Gerson. I have been alluding to him for the whole length of the video, and that is because Gerson is never mentioned by game theory. Not even once. Like, the whole point of Chapter 4 is to place in opposition the prophecy that seemingly cannot be changed, and Gerson, who has studied the prophecy their whole life and says the prophecy may not be that important. But for some reason, this completely flew over the heads of game theory, who decided to flat out ignore this major character. Now, the running joke when it comes to game theory is that they don't actually play the game they talk about. Is it the case here? Nah, probably not. I do think they at least played it once. The main issue with this video is that game theory doesn't create any new ideas. It feels more like a compilation of existing theories that they found on the internet. For example, they never explored the Chris losing their hand theory. I won't go deeper in this because I don't have anything new to add, and many people have made better videos about this topic. But I would have liked to see game theory at least mention this a bit. I don't really know how to end this video, so I'll quickly criticize the title.
The legend of the Deltarune is a lie.
And yet, you spend 20 minutes closely following whatever the prophecy may say without ever mentioning the one character that goes against it. That truly was a theory. A game theory! That's gonna be it for me. If you discover my channel, I'm Custer7. I make Minecraft content with occasional Deltarune videos like this one. If you want to see more, make sure to like or subscribe or both. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!